Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Monday, May 11th. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll be open line following the 11 o'clock news block. But on the second Monday of the month, we are joined on a monthly basis by State Representative Mary Whiteford. She represents most of Allegan County. She's calling from her base of operations just north of the county line in the South Haven area. Mary, good morning and welcome back on the Zoom conversation to WHTC's Talk of the Town.
Good morning, Gary. Good morning, everybody.
Glad you are with us this morning. And if you have a question for Mary, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. Call us at 395-1450, 395-1450. I think Patty Vandenberg, my wife Holly, both said it best. They both agreed Governor Whitmer was going to get her 70 days of emergency powers, and May 24th will be 70 days since the stay home, stay safe, or now safer at home executive orders come out. She's going to get what she wants, but not without a fight from the legislature. Unfortunately, it has to come to that, Mary.
Yeah, well, it sounds on paper that the governor should have the power to be able to run the state. But when you go back into the Constitution and the laws that she pulled from, so the original law back from the 40s was a wartime law when the legislature could not come in. And that was the first time there was an emergency powers law put into effect. Then we came into the 70s where there was work between the governor and the legislature where they said, hey, the governor, you get the first 28 days. And then after that, you have to do it with the authority of the legislature and approval. I mean, it's a joint resolution saying, hey, we're working together as a team. So that is the current law, and that's the current conflict. So the governor's been going off of two different conflicting laws. And that's concerning for us. We can say, hey, this is political, that the Republicans are against the Democrat governor. But would you like for President Trump to have complete authority and not have to answer to Congress? It goes both ways, everybody. So in Michigan law, yes, it's conflicting. We need to get this clarified. We need to work together. I'm a nurse. I mean, the governor's saying, hey, we should be based on science. Well, who's saying I'm not using science in the decisions that I'm making too? It's not an us versus them situation. It's me being the voice of 93,000 people in Allegan County. So many people come to me and they're suffering. I have 150 open cases right now, people who haven't gotten a single dime from unemployment insurance for over a month, hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. There's many people, you're safe at home, great. You've got a regular income, great. There's so many people suffering that everybody has to keep their eyes open to. Just because it doesn't affect you negatively, it affects others. So there's just so much going on. I need to be a voice for Allegan County. I need to look back and say, what are our laws? And should the governor extend this in perpetuity? I don't think that's right. And the number of cases, the percentage of COVID cases too, from a science standpoint, is drastically decreasing. I mean, it was about 40% of all cases were positive when we hardly had any tests being done. Now we're approaching 13,000 and we're only at 7%. So all the belief that as we tested more, we'd have more cases is completely negated right now because it's a similar number of cases. It's under 1,000 every day in a state of almost 10 million people. So I can use the science of that. The governor has her numbers, but we have to get this clarified for future generations. Can a governor do this forever? And what is the role of the legislature and the constitutional role? And I believe there's three tiers. We've got judicial. I mean, I talked to all my fourth graders about this. Judicial, executive, legislative. Nobody has complete power. And that's the way our state is set up in our Constitution. So is it right that the governor has complete power? And that's a question everybody needs to ask themselves.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford.
Hello. I'd like to direct this to Mary Whiteford.
Yes, hi.
I heard on the TV, national TV, over and over again, President Trump say, I'm leaving this to the governors. I'm leaving this to the governors. I'm leaving the closing of businesses, the closing of other things to the governors. Yeah. So I think possibly she does have the right to do what she's doing, but do I agree that they should work together with the legislature? Yes, I do. And
Yeah,
I'm
thank
a
you.
Democrat.
And that's a really good point. Yes, so the president said it goes to the states, it goes to the executive of those states, but still that executive must follow state law. And when we have two conflicting state laws that are being used, and as a back statement, no governor has ever had a second state of emergency without the legislature working with them. Never. This is the very first time this has ever happened. No governor has ever done this to the citizens of their state in Michigan. And I know she believes what she's doing is good, but we still have laws. I may think the best thing around is something totally different, but do I have that authority? No. Does a governor have that authority? For 28 days. But like I said, there's conflicting laws, so we need to get this clarified. And you could have a governor that you totally disagree with in 10 years. Do you want that governor in 10 years to have this authority when you totally disagree with what they're doing? And that's what we have to balance. There's this situation, but there's future situations. And what type of precedent are we setting here in Michigan for our almost 10 million?
I agree, you have to work together.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you. 395-1450, 395-1450. I posed this last week when I brought this up with both state representatives, Luke Meerman and Jim Lilly. I'm going to pose it to you, Mary Whiteford. The seeds of what we are seeing now between the executive branch and the legislative branches of state government was somewhat sown when we had the situation involving the budget?
I think it's the same thing. I'm sorry, the landscapers are like following me around the house with their blowers. So I'm trying to find a quieter spot.
Oh, this is fine. You're fine.
Okay, good. So what I think of, I go back in September and October of last year, and I spent hundreds of hours on my budget. And that was my my statutory responsibility as chair of the Health and Human Services budget. I worked with the department. I came up with numbers, and the governor refused to let her staff work with us to finish the budget. So then when I presented my budget and the House and Senate did, the governor completely changed everything. No, and she said she used her administrative board powers to do that. Well, once again, no governor has ever thought of totally moving around an entire budget just on her own. And so I feel like it's a consistent message that she refuses to work with us as a legislature, but then that's one part of it. The best part of it, though, is I have people within the Health and Human Services Department that are wonderful resources. They work with me all the time. I can call the director at any time. So it's baffling to me. Oh my gosh, the guys are right in front of my window, but it's baffling to me how this is happening. And I would like to get it clarified and, continue working, because now I'm working with on my budget, trying to have something with a possibility of a total over $3 billion of cuts based on what's going on in the economy.
395-1450. If you have a question for State Representative Mary Whiteford, she'll be happy to take it at 395-1450. And we have maybe about 10, 15 minutes at most with her. It's going to be one full segment because of other commitments that the representative has. So we will try to get this through as promptly as we can. Mary, I want to touch a little bit about, you mentioned about the unemployment situation. There was an editorial over the weekend from the Grand Rapids Record Eagle, the editorial board, basically taking state lawmakers a little bit to task over the fact of a broken unemployment system. The editorial is titled "Unemployed Be Back to Work Before They're Paid." And one of the lines that they had in this editorial, Mary, was maybe 2 months of agony will be enough to convince Michigan's policy elite to finally fix the state's flagrantly inadequate unemployment system. I know that some Democrats in Lansing are having a teleconference today to talk about maybe extending benefits, but maybe the biggest problem, Mary, might be more of an unemployment system right now is busted, and this situation has maybe exposed the flaws in that entire system.
Yeah, I agree. So I believe the number is about 35,000. That's about how many people normally go for unemployment at a time. When we're at over 1 million people applying, I mean, yes, it definitely showed that there was a problem with the system. We do have an oversight committee that is led by Representative Hall. He lives over in the Battle Creek area. But they are taking to task the whole UIA system. How was it before? How should it have been fixed? So if you know the departments, that's under the purview of the executive, the governor. The legislature's job is to come up with laws, try to have statute to fix things and appropriate funds. But unless we know that there's an issue, that funding is required to update the system, we'll never know. And so we were never asked previously to have additional funds to update that system. So it really does fall down to the executive, but we'll get into the depths of what's going on because, like I said, I've had many people reach out, and I still have 135 open cases just in my district of families that are getting zero money. And I think actually one of the biggest challenges to this is the fact that we did add the 1099 employees in there who previously never qualified for unemployment, and for them to navigate through and try to get some help financially. So it's a big issue. And so I have had the department, they respond to my staff and me with these challenges. And I'm hoping that many of these people get their cases settled this week.
395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford. Hello, you're on the air. And you are off the air, unfortunately. 395-1450, 395-1450. If you wish to chat with State Representative Mary Whiteford, we're in a Zoom conversation. Let's try this line. As my friend Kevin Wall would say, let's get to a line that has somebody actually on it. Good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford.
I got a question for the representative of the unemployment.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, under the Snyder administration, they set up that computer system, which a lot of people were denied their unemployment completely. And he downsized the unemployment system. And, so what's your comment about that?
Mary?
So I'm not going political at all. A system is a system. In that particular one, that's prior to my time coming in. Actually, when I was elected 4 years ago, that's when had really brewed and come to the top. Is that a IT vendor and the checks and balances they put in were too extreme. And so that all got settled out. Now we're to the point that we're dealing with a whole nother issue, but I don't think it's the turning down of unemployment cases. So thanks for bringing that up, but I always try to go back and listen to the people of Allegan County and who's reaching out to me and not pointing fingers, but let's address it and let's get this taken care of in a very, very unusual time.
Appreciate the call. Thank you very much. 395-1450, 395-1450. If you have a question for State Representative Mary Whiteford, I do want to touch upon improving access to telehealth. You have a plan that has advanced to the House floor. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, oh my gosh, those landscapers. But so I have found throughout the years that there was a difficulty getting telemedicine benefits. And that's just through Medicaid. I'm moving, sorry everybody. So through Medicaid and figuring out what exactly do we need to do to facilitate telemedicine, telepsychiatry, people getting this care through from home, from the safety of their home. And we had this package that came together a few months ago and I introduced it. So my particular bill allows people who are on Medicaid to be able to have telemedicine, telepsychiatry from their home, from their school, or wherever the provider stays. Because prior to this, it had to be at a federally qualified health clinic. So just certain clinic settings. So we have this bill package, and during this time, telemedicine has really become the most important part of our healthcare in Michigan because of the shutdown. So the governor actually reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, hey, we'd really like to get this package moving forward so that even after the state of emergency, we have the ability to continue with this really important service. And it comes down to reimbursement, so that's why it needs to be in statute.
It is House Bill 5416 if you want to look it up. And you can look up the bills, you can Google up Michigan government bills, and you can be able to see it for yourself and see how it moves along the legislative process.
So we do a
395.
session on Wednesday, and we'll be voting on those on Wednesday. And then we'll scoot it over to the Senate, and then the governor should sign it.
Speaking about sessions, Mary, I know that earlier on when the legislature first met back in April, early April, and there were some concerns about, well, we got to keep the legislature away because of safety concerns. That sort of passed a little bit, or is that still something that is in front of mind because of the COVID-19 situation? One lawmaker unfortunately lost his life because of it. But, is that still a concern about lawmakers meeting in this type of situation when right now maybe they don't have to meet?
Yeah, it is a very big concern. So last week was our first big experiment. So each thing is new, right? So when we first had those session dates a few weeks ago, we only went in 10 at a time. We got a check-in by state police, checked our temperature, asked a series of questions. We went up, we checked in, and then most of us left because it was some voice vote issues. Last week, we had a session, and all of the Capitol Commission, the floor leaders, staff, and security worked out a system. So this is what happened. I had a check-in time because session started at 10, but they divided everybody up in groups of 20. My check-in time was 11. So I waited on my car or in my office, the one day I was in my office, and when it was time for me to check in, because they were doing small groups at a time, I went to the side door, put in my pass, because you can only get into the Capitol at that entrance with an ID. The state police was there. They checked my temperature. I had my mask on. I went up to the floor. I sat down. Every single person in the floor was at least 6 feet away. So the person who sits next to me actually had a spot assigned up in the gallery. So that's why our gallery wasn't open last week, because we had legislators spread out throughout the whole place. Some chose not to wear masks. I choose to wear a mask. I've got family back home. I don't want to take a chance of getting them sick. We went there. We had our votes. And then we went home. So it's pretty simple. We're doing the same thing this week. So last week was the first big experiment. I had an appropriations committee at 9, and then I had my Ways and Means committee at 2, where we voted. They ended up voting out the telemedicine bills. And we're going to do some more expansion of committees like that. We have 3 rooms that have the capability of holding a committee hearing where everybody has the safe distancing. Masks are being recommended. All state employees are mandated to wear masks. So all the guards are wearing masks, all of our staff are wearing masks, and we're just adhering to those safe distancing and make sure we don't get sick and make sure we don't bring anything back home, because that's my priority.
395-1450, good morning. You're on the line with State Representative Mary Whiteford.
Hi, Mary. I was just waiting for you to finish your thought. I have one more question, and that's on the guns within the Capitol.
Yes.
Especially the Capitol building itself, and the safety of people working there. When and who will be voting on that? I've heard it a dozen times, but I think my mind is gone. Too much news.
So there's no vote on that.
Every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there is no vote on that. So they're just trying to sort out who has the responsibility and the ability to address that issue. I agree. It was a very frightening picture seeing what had happened in the Senate. When I walked up to the Capitol building, there were people outside, but I went through the side entrance. The Attorney General did make an official opinion this morning stating that the Capitol Commission has the authority to decide if there can be guns or not in the Capitol. There's the belief that it's one of our constitutional rights to be able to carry guns. There are quite a few legislators who do concealed carry. They have their CPLs, but this is kind of like that CPL, the whole issue on steroids is what happened over the past couple of weeks with the large guns going in there. And it is quite frightening. I'm just trying to sort out what we can do about that. I don't think it's right to allow anybody up in the gallery or close with those guns. Like I said, in the House, I didn't even know that was happening because our entire chamber was closed because we had representatives up in the gallery. So I'm really curious to see what direction this goes. But the most important thing is I don't want anybody to feel threatened.
395-1450. Appreciate the call. Good morning. One last call for State Representative Mary Whiteford.
Well, quick comment. It appears that our state government is up and running. The Senate and the House are together. Isn't it ridiculous that Nancy Pelosi is not in Washington and taking care of the responsibilities that we're paying them for? Just commenting.
All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate the call. Thank you very much. 395-1450. Mary, I know that's a federal thing. And,
Right.
and Bill Heising has said it best, was the fact that, hey, other people have to go to work and frontliners. We can do our job as well. That's why he's more of the opinion of let's get to work in Washington as well.
Yeah. So we all have jobs to do. My number one priority is still chair of the Health and Human Services budget, normally about $26 billion. So I work on that every single day because I want to be ready to go working with the department, with my colleagues, to have a good solid budget that'll go through and get approved. This Friday is a really big day. Not only is the court case with the governor and her executive orders, that's at 10 o'clock, but at 9 o'clock is something called a consensus revenue estimating conference. And that's where we've got some economists and our fiscal professionals come together and they figure out about how much money that we're going to have to work with moving forward. So once we have those numbers and it's changing every day, then we can actually have our budgets voted out of committee and move it forward, working with the governor. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. I just know from a state level, we're all working really hard. So thank you.
And the other thing too is the fact that budget time is getting close. I mean, you have about 6 weeks with the new law that was passed in, Greg Van Workum's law, to have a budget on the governor's desk by June the 30th. That'll leave you about 6 weeks to try to get it done.
Yeah, and what's nice about budgets is there's something called a supplemental. And what that is, it's an amendment to the budget. So the budget has all the numbers in there, but if we need to do some changes, we're going to have to do a negative supplemental of this current budget year. And then when we get to the end of this current budget year, there's going to be an amendment and a right sizing because everybody has a budget for their homes, right? And at the end, you hope you have some extra money. And if you don't, you're going to have to dig deep and figure out how to balance that out. And it's the same thing with the state budget. So I think we can get some good things out to start. And if we have to make some amendments, that's what we do. We go back and do some more work to do that. And that's the most respectful thing we can do for the taxpayers of Michigan.
State Representative Mary Whiteford, we're going to have to button up our conversation now because you have some other commitments coming up at the top of the hour. But we want to thank you very much for joining us in the Zoom conversation from your base of operations in Casco Township. And if all goes well, we'll do a face-to-face chat, hopefully in person. If not, we'll do the Zoom once again next month here on Talk of the Town. Mary, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed day.